Hi everyone, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Welcome back to my garden. Boy, here we are going into the middle of August, and that means fall is just a month away. Now, if you live in a long season climate, you probably aren't worried at all. But I'm in hardiness zone 5B, and that means that our season could be coming to an end in about a month's time. Now, I still have lots of green tomatoes. I've got hard melons. I've got unripe winter squash. And so what I wanted to do is to share some tips with you today, just in case you're in the same boat, on how to get them to ripen before the end of the season. Let's talk about tomatoes first, and you can see it's a bit of a jungle in here. What you're looking at in the front are pots of tomatoes that we're growing, mostly smaller tomatoes, and then 3 rows of paste and slicing tomatoes. And you can see there's a lot of rangy growth on here. So what I do in about the middle of August is I start reining in the plants a bit so that I can get them to start thinking about ripening the green tomatoes on the plants. So let me show you what I do. In this bed, I'm growing Sun Gold cherry tomatoes and Chef's Choice orange slicing tomatoes. And you can see there's all of this new growth on the top. There's even flowers up here. Well, there is no way that those flowers are going to turn into tomatoes that are ripe by the end of the season because we just have a month. So what I start doing is carefully cutting back this tall growth. I'm always looking to make sure I'm not going to lop off some tomatoes that I think will make it by the end of the season. So you need to be very careful about this. Although, you know, if you accidentally do lop off a nice tomato, don't worry about it. It's okay. And I'm wearing gloves because I always get green hands from working with tomatoes. So it's going to make these tomato plants a lot shorter. But that's okay. The goal is to get a bunch of ripe tomatoes before the end of the season. I know that looks drastic, but it's really important to do this. Okay, here are the 2 paste tomato rows before and after. I know this looks drastic, but it really works. I have been using this pruning method for years, and I always end up with plenty of ripe red tomatoes. Now there's actually 3 steps to this pruning process, and I promise to do follow-up videos on the other 2. But just to let you know what's going to happen in about 10 days is you're going to see new growth again on the plants because they didn't get the message that they're done. So you're going to trim that foliage back. You're also going to trim back some leaves that are shading any of the tomatoes that you think look large enough that they'll be mature in time for the end of the season. And you're also going to cut back the water to your beds by 50%. So look for those next videos. Now, just to show you that mistakes occasionally happen, I accidentally snipped the branch that had these Chef's Choice orange tomatoes on. Fortunately, I think I can still ripen them. That's because they're just about mature size, and what I'm going to do is take them down into our basement. I'm going to set them on a sheet of newspaper and cover them with a sheet of newspaper so they're in the dark. And with a little luck, they will ripen. I'll follow up with you on that. But at first I thought, oh man, I can't believe I did that. And then I thought, you know, I think they're big enough that they will ripen still. Now, if you grew melons this year, you're going to do something similar to the tomato routine, but it's not quite as involved. You really just need to do it once. What you want to do is one of 2 things. You certainly want your plants to focus their energy on ripening any size melon that looks large enough to be mature by the end of the season. And so you can either pinch off any flower buds that you see because there's no point in the plants trying to create new melons that will not be mature by the end of the season. So that's one possibility. The other is to trim back the vines. Now this one doesn't have anything on it, so I'm just going to cut it back. And you know, when you're talking about a melon, you really, really want to be careful this time in pruning things back. And so I'm looking very carefully on each vine and trimming it off. There's nothing on there. But I will point out, which you probably can't see, but there's a tiny melon on there. There's no way this will be ripe in a month, so off it goes. But yeah, anytime you're near an existing melon, make sure you look at the whole vine before you trim it off, because there will be tears if you trim off. Yeah, I almost got that one. Okay, so that goes off. But the thing I like about pruning off the flowers is that you're leaving lots of foliage so that it can conduct photosynthesis, which will give the plants plenty of energy for ripening the melons. The thing I don't like about pinching off the flowers is it is extremely labor intensive. So it's really a matter of what you would prefer to do. Here's another vine I can trim off. But again, be very careful. I've got about 10 melons in here, and I don't want to lose a single one. Now with pumpkins and winter squash, it's the same routine as with the melons. But the good news is these do not bloom as much as the melons do, so it's not as tedious. But again, you can either take a vine and follow it back to make sure there's nothing that you're going to clip off and remove the vine, or pinch off the flower blossom. And look, there's a pumpkin down there. Now before I get back to the rest of my pruning, I have some very exciting news to share with you. I have written a new book. It's called the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook. It's from Cool Springs Press, and it will officially be out in April, although it's already up on Amazon, believe it or not. It is the compilation of all of the things I've learned over the years about dealing effectively with vegetable garden pests using just organic methods. And I pulled all of this together because I wanted you to always have successful growing seasons. So I'm very excited about this book, and I hope you are too. In the meantime, I hope this video was helpful, and get those pruners out there, especially if you have a short growing season. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next week. Happy gardening.